Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ibima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. Before we continue, I'd like you to please press the like button so that we can get the algorithm going, get it cooking, and help to spread the viewership of this video. I have a question. No, I have two questions. Do you think that President Putin's approach to the Russian-Ukraine war is slow? Yeah. Do you think it's slow? And if you think so, do you think President Putin should do like the Israelis do? Bring a decisive end to the war, maybe through a decapitation of the whole leadership of the Ukrainian government, and possibly also a complete and total destruction of Kiev, maybe through the use of the Oreshnik, if they want to keep it conventional, or maybe a tactical nuclear weapon, one that will send a very decisive message to the promoters and the supporters of the Ukrainian cause. I'd like to know your opinions, your views in the comment section, because as it so happens, there's a lot of pressure on President Putin to increase the pace of the war. In fact, in Russia, some people want him to be very decisive and to end this war forthwith. No more dilly-dallying and no more playing the good guy and being nice and having summits with Trump and all that. Make it decisive. It will not be the first time in history. Harry Truman had a problem. He was fighting a very warrior-like nation called Japan. They are known for being very resilient and robust fighters, and they were trying to expand their empire. The war had been going on. They got the Americans into the war when they bombed Pearl Harbor, and that war was being a pain for the Americans. So what did the Americans do? On August 6, 1945, they dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 2 days later, they dropped another bomb on the city of Nagasaki. The Japanese had not seen anything like that before, and it didn't need much encouragement. They just surrendered. The two bombs were called Small Boy and Big Boy. What a very terrible name for such destructive forces. So it is this kind of approach that some people are insisting on that President Putin should use. And the people who are making these demands are getting more and more stringent in their demand. Maybe we should know that opposition to President Putin's approach has been there for a while. Topmost among them is a former intelligence officer who is called Igor Gerkin. He led the 2014 Donbas seizures. If you remember, you will know about men in green, people who just appeared from nowhere after the coup, the Maidan coup in 2014. Also, another one is a pro-Russian politician. He also is from Donetsk. His name is Oleg Saryov. The list is long. I'm only just saying some. And what do they want? They feel that Putin, their core criticisms are Putin is stalling victory, is war managed. He has managed the war into a stalemate. They have all manners of criticisms for Putin. They just don't like this Putin's approach. And what is Putin's approach so far in this war? Many people have described this war managed by General Valery Gerasimov as a war of attrition. The war has really changed. The Russians try to use the tactics of classical warfare, but drones and a vast array of NATO equipment changed that thinking. They've adapted, and over time, they have used what many people call a war of attrition to try and grind down the Ukrainian armed forces. But yet, a lot of Russians don't feel so. And interestingly, this war is being propagated at such a rate because there are Telegram channels. There are so many Telegram channels. There are even channels on YouTube and in other platforms that show daily movements. They call them the mapping channels. And they also have powerful media presence in Russia. They are critical of Putin, and they make it known that this is slow method. This is war of attrition is just not what they want. They want a decisive and conclusion to this war using all that is available to the Russian state. We should not forget the Russian state is by miles the largest holder of the world's biggest nuclear arsenal. They feel it's disrespectful to allow the Europeans to continue to push Russia around just because Russia is being nice and diplomatic. They don't think it's a Russian way of doing things. But if we see this method that the Russians have been using, slowly moving through the front line, slowly degrading the Ukrainian army, winning territories in little tranches, but also using a new tactics where they've redefined war maneuver and they're using their drones very effectively. They are reinventing themselves. But that is not enough for the hardliners. This is what the hardliners want Russia to use. This year was used in November of 2025, and it's called the Oreshnik. The Oreshnik was used for the very first time in November 2025. The Oreshnik is a new nuclear-capable hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile developed by Russia, first used in November against a facility in Dnipro. It is designed to fly at speeds exceeding Mach 5, making it very difficult for current air defense systems to track. The missile can carry multiple warheads. We can see the multiple warheads being deployed there. In fact, usually it's six warheads. The Oreshnik has now been made into serial production and has been deployed even to Belarus. With this kind of weaponry, they don't think that any country in Europe can stand in the way of Russia's goals. Very maximalist goals, I will think. By the view of the Russians, not maximalist in any form. But what are these goals? That Ukraine should not join any alliance, that Ukraine should relinquish the 4 oblasts, accept that they are gone. There are 5 actually. Crimea, that's been the first. Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. They should just say goodbye to those ones. But beyond that also, they should just maintain a very nice army of no more than 50,000 people. The Russians have been on this for a long time. But if you ask me, why do you think that President Putin has chosen this method? If you want Mungo's perspective, very simple. This war has been profitable in rejuvenating the Russian state. Nothing in the past 30 years has given Russia a boost in its economy, a boost in its psychology, and a boost in its standing in international affairs more than the Russia-Ukraine war. I can say that very wholeheartedly. The Russia-Ukraine war has meant that manufacturing has grown by leaps and bounds. Russia now produces aeroplane engines. Aeroplane, there is now the Super 1000 MC private jets, private planes. They're making their own variant of the 737. They have airplane engines for jets. Their space program has kicked in. That never stopped anyway. But their weapons system to modernize. Their whole nuclear triad has been modernized. They are on a roll. In fact, they are on such a roll that it creates cycles of inflation now and then, and the central bank of Russia has to battle to bring down inflation through some very harsh measures. So this is where it is. The Russian war has been very profitable, and in fact, Macron has even said it that with almost conscription or call-up or volunteering of, they now have a very large army of 1.5 million. At the start of the Ukraine war, the army was just around in the 300s and 400s of thousands, deployed over a very vast country. But now they are almost 1.5 million. They are still recruiting. This has stimulated the salaries too, we should say, very good, very good. But it has also stimulated their innovation. Despite sanctions, their oil and gas industry is doing very well. And they are also like their Arctic 2 project now. They are very much involved in replacing all the machinery and all the equipment that they always used to get from Germany, Italy, and all France and all those other countries. They have now built a resilient economy. And it's no thanks to this war. If you end the war now, they may fall back. That is what I think. I think that President Putin has come to realize that he can keep this war going in a very slow way while he's still building. And yet we hear the rhetoric of the Europeans expanding every day. And this rhetoric means that the Russians are just accumulating and getting themselves ready for a possible war. The Europeans believe that war will come in 2027, 2028, when possibly there will be no more Ukrainians to use in the battlefield. They will now be ready to step up. They are in the process of rearming and propagandizing their populace. They are telling them the reason why they should go and fight a war with Russia. So they are in that process. But the Russians are not waiting. The Russians are getting ready. And a slow war like this may just serve that interest. But this war must come to an end, or should come to an end. That is what President Trump believes. And for that, he has a summit coming up with President Putin. The question of this summit with President Putin has become one that between Trump and Putin in Budapest, of all places. But why would it be Budapest? President Trump says Viktor Orban is a strong man. He has been bullied by the European Union because he holds a very strong anti-war stance. He has been one of two Europeans who have gone against the grain of the whole European Council and the whole European community and kept good relationships with Russia. And Budapest, small as they are, just 10 million people, located in a very, very landlocked, let me just say, they were the ones that ends up getting the nod to host President Putin's and President Trump's summit. But this is a problem for both parties. Why is this a problem? Maybe I should put up the map again. I have put up this map before. And this is where Hungary lies, smack in the middle. And it will be a problem for the Russian president. The Russian president has very belligerent enemies, and many have closed their airspace to the Russians, or even if they have not closed it, there's the risk that they may shoot it down. They may shoot or attempt to interfere with President Putin's plane. So the talk about where President Putin, what route President Putin should take has become one that is being discussed quite a lot now. And one of the proposals here is that he possibly may be taking the route that will overfly Turkey and ultimately get into the Mediterranean Sea and then through Serbia and into Hungary. This is a route that likely route will be Budapest, Moscow, Sochi, Black Sea, Istanbul, Serbia, Hungary. This is the route that we are seeing. So, but one thing we should know is that President Putin's um, plane is very well guarded. Yeah, it may be necessary to put a this in of president. What kind of protection you usually get? S-35, Su-35s, Su-34s, bombers is flanked just like the American president by some of the most lethal bombers, fighter bombers in the world. Most times when he flies, especially when he went to the Middle East, he had this entourage following him. His plane is it's an Illusion 92 300 PU. It is a flying fortress. It has a lot of amenities, just like Air Force One, and you will think that it is not protected, but it is very well protected. And definitely, it does seem like it will be calling for a war with Russia if anybody tries to intervene with or try to bring down the Russian president's plane. Some presidents have lost their lives when they go visiting other countries. The last to be killed in a plane crash, a helicopter crash, was the Iranian president after visiting Azerbaijan. Now that we are getting to learn that that region is populated by Mossad agents, you may just want to wonder whether they had a hand in bringing down his helicopter. The Polish president too had also been killed in a plane crash, I think, and his brother, the twin brother, took over and became president of Poland for a while. I think Duda was his name. So this is the big talk now, and the big irony of it all is that we hear now that the Europeans are really scrambling. They want to be part of that meeting. But like President Trump has said, that is just going to be a bilateral between President Putin and President Trump. Already, they are discussing about it. They are going on. They are making plans. And I have said that the Ukraine matter is a very important one. It's dear to President Trump, so he can notch it up as one of his victories. It's a very good thing in this world to have a leader, no matter how we scoff at it and no matter how we play and make jokes about it. Indeed, it is a good thing to have one, especially one as powerful as the American president, who says, I want peace. The only problem is that the people in Venezuela now wish that somehow that spirit of peace that is pushing him all across the whole world will also bring him to the realization that the accumulation of military resources around Venezuela is causing some angst and discontent and unhappiness. So we don't know if that is a form of peace that he's trying to put together. But generally, it's a good thing when an American president, because we'll know them, we'll know the American presidents. Obama, Nobel Peace Prize, but what did he do? He spawned a whole range of wars and bombings and killings all over the world. Libya, Syria, there was just devastation all over the Middle East from a Nobel Peace Laureate, very undeserving of it for that matter. George Bush, which of them do you want? But let's talk about the second one. Nobody has been a warmonger like that one for a long time. An American president talking peace is as rare as ice in the Sahara Desert. Very rare. But so we should not take it lightly. This summit will achieve so many things, many things. There are so many discussions between the Americans and the Russians. And it may also lead to reiteration of the Russian position. And President Trump will use his vast skill in deal making to try and impress upon the Russian president that maybe you should also yield. Because one thing we've come to know that throughout this whole course of this war, the Russians have not moved once. They've not bulged, given any concession. They are playing a long game, a very long game. I play a game called chess. Very, very, very dominated by the Russians. It's a game they love. It's a game of strategy. When you are the wrong end of a chess player who plays defensive, that means you can't break him, then slowly starts to strangulate you and take up your pieces, you will know that it's not a funny thing at all. And that's just what the Russians do in their wars. Go and ask Napoleon. Go and ask Hitler. The Ukrainians are not finding it funny. Daily rains of drones and missiles is not fun. Losing power at this critical time in cities like Kiev, Odessa, Kharkiv, when the weather is getting to sub-zero. This is when the Russians are now blowing up energy substations. They're not even going for the generation plants anymore. They don't want controversy. Some of those generation plants are nuclear. So they've just gone for the distribution infrastructure. And they are doing, bringing pain to the whole Ukraine. But they have good excuse because they say that it is through that distribution infrastructure that the trains that ferry military equipment, this is how they tie it into a storyline that really, really brings pain to the Ukrainians. It's not a new thing. This is what the Russians do. So the Europeans want to be there. They really want to be. And Bloomberg reported it. Bloomberg said that the Europeans are even putting together the fact that they may nominate Alexander Stubb. Alexander Stubb has become a favorite of Putin, of Trump, because he's showing a lot of favor, a very lot of solid favor, because Finland found themselves that Finland may be having buyer's remorse because they were sold onto this NATO project when Biden was there, and then now they are now in that alliance when Trump has come and gone. They are doing everything to try and get Trump to open 15 bases in Finland. Finland, we should remember that despite the fact that they were a neutral country, they had a very formidable army. They had an industry. They were very, they have a big reserves. They're very resilient with their military. They really did a lot because in World War II, they joined forces with Hitler in order to attack the Soviets. And they succeeded. They achieved a lot. They were part of several very notorious massacres. And when they saw that the tide of the war was changing, they promptly moved to supporting the Russians and the Soviets. Ultimately, they lost some part of their territory, 10% of their land, and remained neutral after that, built good economic relationship. Now we even hear that the economy is suffering because of that relationship with Russia, because a lot of the tourism, a lot of the buying and selling and used to be Russians, but that has no more. So President Trump has gotten to take a fondness to Alexander Stubb, because Alexander Stubb has been very agile, very, very committed. He has found a way to get the attention of President Trump, especially as he does. The Finns do have one technology the Americans want. And what's that technology? They know how to build icebreakers. That's a technology America just doesn't have. America has about 2 icebreakers. They were research icebreakers, one from far back. I mean, most things in America, like the New York rail system, the New York metro, they were built 100 years ago. If you go there, broken and full of rats. Apart from the one in the World Trade Center, ironically, that the World Trade Center was destroyed, and because of that, they modernized that part of the rail metro infrastructure in New York. It is broken beyond belief, because you will know this if you go to other countries that are more modern. And that's how a large part of their naval infrastructure is. And even though they were the ones who first built icebreakers, I think, I may not be right on that one, But they can't compare to the Russians who now have nuclear-powered icebreakers, about six of them, and also have a lot of, to the extent that these nuclear icebreakers have helped them to open an Arctic route called the Northern Sea Route. The Finns still they have one or two or three of them, but they have an industry that builds it, and he was called and summoned to Alexander Stubb was summoned by Trump recently so that they would negotiate about how they will build nuclear icebreakers. At least icebreakers. That is a part that was put in the budget of the big beautiful bill, $1 trillion defense budget. We should not forget that America has 800 bases all over the world, and they still project a lot of power, even though they realize that warfare has changed and they need to make investments in drones and now war icebreakers. And it is for that reason Stubb is very important. And so it's Stubb that they are nominating to go and see if he can be nice to Trump and say, can I be part of that summit? I will just be an observer, just an observer. I'll just stand by the corner there and listen. I will interfere. It's going to be a Trump and Putin show. It's just going to be. And these are the harrowing things for the European Union. First, the most recalcitrant of all are stubborn. The one they want to, they've used all several ordinances of the EU. True or false, all of them, made up or real, to try and deny the Hungarians, because the Hungarians just weren't playing along, were insisting on peace and telling them that they have a virus of war disturbing them in their brains. Viktor Orban is the EU member they would wish to throw away. They are finding every means to sidestep him and Robert Fico of Slovakia. It is him that has been chosen. And it is in this place where they don't like, they would not have any presence, they have not had any presence, and it is causing a lot of anguish. I can make you don't need to guess, the anguish will be felt more in London. The anguish will be even bigger in France. As regards the Germans, there will be a lot of gnashing of teeth. Let's not forget, Ursula von der Leyen is German. Defense Minister of Germany for a long time under Angela Merkel. The most rabid of all the chancellors, the one who has been more wondering, who wants to go back to the glory days when Germany had such a very powerful army and military. He wants to spend 800, quite a lot of money. He wants to borrow money obviously from BlackRock, where he came. He wants to stimulate. He has helped to increase the debt ceiling in Germany, and he wants rearmament. The Russians just told him that they are watching him. A militarized Germany is a border to even Poland and all the neighbors of Germany. They will choose between Russia and Germany. Who do they want breathing down their neck? They will always choose Russia and say, no, we can deal with Russia. The Germans is another matter altogether. But he wants to rearm. He wants to rearm, and he's been saying it. And he will definitely would want to have a year on what's going on in Budapest. So the Budapest one, everybody is looking forward to it. We are watching, and we're hoping that it will come on soon. And today, finally, the Iranians did two things. One, they launched a ballistic missile that is 10,000 that has a range of 10,000 miles, or is it kilometers? 10,000 miles, it's too much. It will have to be kilometers, because 10,000 miles is 16,000 kilometers, and that will even be, it's only the Russians and the Americans that have that capability. So must be 10,000 miles. So it's a ballistic missile, and it fits into what Netanyahu has been saying, that they want to be able to have a range that will get to Mar-a-Lago and New York and Florida and Miami. But beyond that, also on a serious note, they actually put a letter into the United Nations calling the attempt by the E3 and America to place snapback on them as null and void, and that the sanction and the JCPOA has been voided from October 18th. From now on, Iran doesn't consider themselves to be under sanctions. The 120 countries that support her don't consider Iran to be under sanctions. Neither do the Chinese or the Russians consider the Iranians to be under sanctions. Two very important news, though. One, the Americans finally started to have discussions with the Chinese over their trade war. It was very convivial, very, very nice. The report that came out of it from Scott Betten, of no less a person, said it was a very good one, and they are going on forward with their progress. They referenced the telephone call between Xi Jinping and Trump, and it also emerged that they have reduced, America has removed the 100%, the threat of a 100% increase in the tariffs, added to the 30% that is already existing. And it also emerged today too that America's debt is very close, very, very close to $38 trillion now. It's now officially at 37.9. They're getting there. It is an overhang that is just not going away. This is where I end my video for today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any opinions regarding the views I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Please do well to like and share. Like, so that we can expand the viewership and the subscription of this channel. Until I see you again, until my next video, goodbye.